Hello and welcome to another episode of the Gray Stage book. We're reading the book written by Greg Fernandez Jr. called The Gray Stage. If you get a chance to read it. It's available online in PDF format for free. Today's episode number 42. My name is Dan Hennon. I'll be joined with Greg Fernandez Jr., the host, as we go along. And once again, we're on chapter 16 in the book, the final chapter. The final chapter in this book is also the longest chapter, but it has some of the most detail, some of the most important items on this case in this one chapter. We'll be starting off from our previous episode, reading from the bottom of page 174. It starts off, the following December 9th, 2014 post by David Crowley has since been removed. So he's got it up there on the screen. Here's what it says. Here's what David Crowley wrote. Quote, "Can you believe it? The rise is almost done. I'm serious. She's coming out to be quite the looker. Can't wait to show you all, but I have to comb her hair for a few more weeks. Anyway, I'm quite serious about giving this film away. I have come to abhor the AJ model of peddling DVDs as truth and cashing in on suckers. I've given this film years of my time, and I'm delighted for the opportunity to burn it down by giving it away and hope you all share the feeling. You've all been given this project a lot of attention, and I thank you. Soon it will be time to go live, and we'll get to watch it all unfold." End quote. So a lot in that paragraph, and this is once again a lot in a post. This is a Facebook post on David Crowley's personal Facebook page, not the group, not the movie, not the studio. His personal page, and he talks about the rise, about giving it away. He goes after AJ, who is Alex Jones, a bit, and he's going to give it away for free in the coming weeks. This is December 9th. Remember, the bodies were found January of 2015, so this is the second week of December before Christmas. A lot in this, Greg.
Yeah, there sure is, especially the going live. I think a lot of people who really believe that David Crowley faked his own death have, a lot of people I know, they've kind of latched on to that, where he says we're going live, almost like, the script, the movie, the theater, the Gray Stage is now going to go live for everybody, and we're all going to get to see it play out, which we have for the last 10 years now. Kind of just watch this thing play out as new people find this case, and as some people burn out on this case too.
Yes, it is. But this is a lot to go on. Remember, his friends, the people in the inner circle, did want this movie to go out and get paid. They wanted to go in the box office. They wanted to make money. They all wanted to cash in. And here's him going, what I call going rogue, not confirming with his friends and buddies, not talking with the inner circle and getting confirmation with the other managers, the other business managers here. He did this himself. He says, I'm going to give it away for free. And this is what took it to the entire next level. Continuing on, who had access to David Crowley's Facebook account? Why was this post and its content and its comments removed from David's personal Facebook wall? Why would someone remove or hide this post from David Crowley's Facebook account? Various screenshots are all that remain of the post above and several associated comments. So like you're saying here, Greg, when we were following, this was on his page. This was live on his page when the murders happened. And then when we started poking into it, we started creating the Justice for David Crowley Facebook groups and looking at his pages and looking at the things and investigating it. It wasn't until then that it was deleted, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. As far as we know, and that's one of two that were, but this one really stands out for the obvious reasons.
This is, once again, this is your motive. This is, in all crimes, you need the means, motive, and opportunity. Motive was right here, and that's why it had to, because it didn't fit the narrative. The narrative was he was a depressed, psycho, broke guy with nothing to live for, and he wanted to kill himself. Well, this is really almost a euphoric post saying, I'm so happy to do this. I'm going to do it for free. I cannot wait. Interesting. Now that stuff is gone. The post is gone. When we say delete, people get confused because it may not have been deleted. We've gone over this on the Facebook group as well too. In Facebook, You could hide something and it'll also be gone. It'll not be public. You can hide it or delete it. What we're trying to focus on the Facebook group is that someone did something to that post. You have to go in under David's login, and either you get two options on Facebook: delete or hide. The owner of the account can hide or delete the post. No one else can do it on someone else's wall. So the question was, who did that? Who took it away so it couldn't be seen by the public? A very important post. Someone did that. And now we get into the aftermath. Not only were the homicides horrific, but all the things that happened in the aftermath was horrific. This kind of stuff this is all aftermath. Now, this is your true conspiracy things going on. People, more than individuals, but people as a group doing things to make sure the narrative is steered. The first comment on the December 9th post came from David. Quote, "You guys are friggin' sweet. I hope the film makes you all proud. I would try to do a private screening or something exclusive, but hearing the news every day, I don't think we have the time." End quote. And so this is end of 2014. Lots of stuff in real time was going on. And he basically said, we don't have the time. This is all happening what we predicted in real time. The first person to comment on David's post wrote, quote, "It's taken a lot out of you, I'm sure. The iron is hot, waiting for you to strike," end quote. The second person to leave a comment was Sean Wright, who wrote, quote, "You need to call me. I'm all good with you with getting out free intact. I brought that up initially. But if it's released before my court, you may send me to prison instead of beating my case. For real though, David Crowley, call me," end quote. Sean also posted his phone number in his public comment. And we've spent a lot of time, Greg, on this on the Justice for David Crowley Facebook page, that this got Sean Wright so upset that he mentions the court date. He mentions going to court, throws in the fact that I'm the one who brought this up originally by giving it away for free. We don't need to hear that, but he's puffing his chest out as a big, important person. I brought this up myself. We should give it away for free.
All about him.
I highly doubt he ever brought that up, giving anything away for free, because that's not Sean Wright. So he has to throw that in there because of his ego. Then he says, "Let me know, give me a call." He posts his phone number. So we know that if you're a friend of someone on Facebook, if you are friends with them, if you're not familiar with social media, on Facebook, you can private message that person anytime you want, because now you're friends with that person. Sean's friends with David. He was working with him, of course. But he leaves his cell number and says, "Call me," on the public post. And so we've gotten into that a lot on the Facebook. Why wouldn't you just give a direct message and say, "Dude, give me a call"? You don't need the world to see this. "Dude, give me a call." He already has his phone number, David, but then David gets a new number. So just because he got that new phone number, that new setup with the new phone number, Sean Wright probably thinks, I don't even know what your new phone number is because you changed your phone. So give me a call," directing David to take the action to call, and puts it on the public post that I need this because I got a court case coming up. A very poor choice on putting all of this information on a comment in public for the world to see. And once again, this is the aftermath. All of these poor choices that were made by the inner circle. The next paragraph, reading on, it says, Sean's, quote, "tax stuff is in the leaked version of Gray State: The Rise, which is known as the, quote, rough cut of David's documentary. David was worried the release of Gray State: The Rise could send him to prison." He didn't say jail, he said prison. Responding, David says, quote, "I don't have any of your tax talk in there, Sean, my man. Don't sweat it. The movie is meant to send other people to prison." Very good response by David. Very good. He leaves himself out of it. He flips the tables and says, "You're good, bro. You're good." Well, Sean is sweating bullets on the other end. This is the same Sean Wright who contacted me after David's death. This is Greg, who wrote the book, contacted Greg, encouraging me to stop asking questions and just accept the fact that David Crowley was guilty of a double murder suicide. Page 177. In Detective Booth's report, Danny Mason stated David emailed him directly on December 7th of 2014. However, the email exchange, the date is December 9th, when David sent the final email to Danny Mason. Quote, in deference to your hesitation to sign the Gray State release document, David wrote Danny, I give you these verbal guarantees. You will have A, full producer credit on the film The Rise, unpaid. And that's not your quote, Greg. That was in the email. He was reminding him that I'll give you a credit. You'll be in the credit, but it's an unpaid deal because these guys are focused on money. Letter B, guaranteed casting as lead role. John Wank in Gray State series, paid. Now this is paid. This is the television series. Once again, David was planning for the future. The Hollywood deal was not dead, and Gray State was going to be pitched as a television series. So once again, they pitched it to the Hollywood producers. No one liked it except the Mikes. The Mikes liked it. They bought it. They moved forward. They went ahead with it. They gave them the green light, and they wanted to move forward. But they said, look, let's tweak this and make this into a TV series. And for that, we're going to need actors and actresses. David said, you can play the lead. No problem. And yes, that's a paid spot, but that's a TV series. Nothing in the documentary. Going on, it says, quote, you will have every opportunity to continue to collaborate, David assured Danny, writing and producing episodes and retaining your cherished position as a co-creator of the original concept in the public eye. But I will not be able to sign you into any contracted roles until I have your signed release document. I would like to have it by December 16th, after which we would be free to discuss a future with Gray State that's more respectful to your talents as a paid professional. Now, Greg, this is so loaded once again. And once again, I love David Crowley's writing, his verbiage, his condescending backhanded slaps,
right,
underhanded, and he says it's very clear. Now, hindsight's 2020, so we know that he's laying it all out. You can do this, you can't do this, we can talk about this, you won't be in this, and we'll collaborate, we'll do whatever. But he's telling him the instructions. He's making Danny the subordinate. I'm telling you what's going on here.
Yeah,
I'm running the show, not you, and you will have some things, but we'll discuss them.
And I wonder if David was actually lying to Danny about this, because you talked to one of the Mikes, and they had no idea about any of this contract or anything that David and Danny were going through, right?
Yeah, they didn't know about the problems with the legal release document to release some people. So when Danny was co-creator, Danny and David were co-creators on this whole concept, and then David took the ball and ran with it. Now it gets time to a movie deal, and now David says, by the way, I'm doing this myself. I know you're involved, but I'm kind of cutting you loose, and you'll get credits, and we'll have you do some other things down the road. But I need you to sign this to say we're done. From a business perspective, for this movie, this film series, we're done. You'll be paid as an employee, in other words, an actor. We'll cut you checks as an actor, but you're not on the business decision making anymore. That's me. But that's not going to happen until you sign it. That's why Danny August Mason never signed it. He could not, from his own ego, give up that power that he had. And yes, I don't know if it was true or not, but David was forcing his hand. He forced him into the corner and gave him a date of December 16th.
I also found it strange that in the last script that we have, which I believe is from May of 2014, Danny Mason's character is actually written out of that script. He's not really in that script now. And so when David gives that to the Mikes, I wonder if the Mikes were like, where's the main character from the trailer? Where's, the main guy in here? And maybe they didn't care because maybe the main character in the 2014 script, they didn't know if maybe that was actually Danny August Mason's character, which kind of a variation of it too. But I do wonder about that, and if there was any talk about bringing this character back, or were the Mikes just, they didn't know, didn't really care, they were going to pitch it and do something different with it. I'm always curious about that.
So David Crowley's lawyer, who he was working with, was the one who said, let's get these release documents done because we don't want to have this thing go big and then later have these people come back and say, look, I was part of the group. I was the founder. I was the co-founder. I was the co-creator. I was a business partner with you. He says, this has to be your gig. This has to be your deal. So they're not communicating back with the mics for the movie or the TV series. And they were tabled until the lawyer says, get this piece done first. This is on your checklist. Get everyone that's associated with you to sign this release. Forward it to me. And once that's done, we'll start negotiating with the movie and whatnot. And Danny held the whole thing up. Everything was tabled because Danny August Mason did not sign this deal. And that's why everything was delayed. And I agree with the lawyer. Let's get this stuff done first. Danny pushed and pushed and pushed, reminded him several times, and finally gave the deadline of December 16th. Remember, they weren't even talking at this point. So everything was done through emails because these so-called friends were already exposed. David knew what he was dealing with and refused to chat with these folks. Changed his phone number. I mean, they knew something was coming to a head.
Yeah.
At 3:50 p.m. on December 11th, David did not pick up his phone when his mom called. Now, this gets back into last episode too, when his mother and father and brother and allegedly family members were calling and David wasn't picking up. He was dealing with all this turmoil with the Gray State. And I think he was pushing his family stuff to later, like phase 2. He was going to fix all the family stuff later, but he needed to get this stuff squared away with. So he was not answering his calls. On December 15th, 1:03 p.m., Allison, his sister, sent an email to Kamel, his wife, inviting her, David, and Rania to Dan Sr.'s house for Christmas Eve festivities. An hour later, Kamel declined the invitation, stating the three of them were going to spend Christmas Eve at home. And, back to the timing for the new people involved here, a lot of people think that the murders took place on Christmas or Christmas Day or in the aftermath. So this is very important with the dates here. Kamel declined, said thanks for the invitation, but we're going to do things as a family. They were focusing on the family. David, Kamel, and Rania they were a very connected unit. And this gets away from this whole topic of he was depressed, she was depressed, they were fighting, there was going to get a divorce, they didn't have money, they were bankrupt. All these problems in their life that we found out later were false. They were injected narratives. Kamel goes out of her way to say, we're looking forward to spending Christmas Eve, just the three of us. We don't want to have anyone else involved, but thanks for the invite, but we won't go. Interesting.
Probably the first time, too, maybe that the three of them actually do this here. And it sounds like they may have spent Thanksgiving. I have to go back and look at the Day One Journal about the Thanksgiving that year. But it sounds like maybe they also did that on Thanksgiving, too, and was like, this is cool. It's nice to have us.
They were doing, I would call it, in my opinion, they were doing cool parenting things. They were doing cool parenting. He always going to get the push from the family and in-laws and extended family to try to bring you in, and that's all fine. Some families do very good with that, but this group, this unit right here, was loving life and having fun with just those three as a unit. They were really connected.
Sure.
Quote, bottom of 177, we'll be spending our Christmas Eve putting up lights around the house, Kamel responded to Allison. Quote, making some hot cocoa and telling some children's stories by the fire. Now this almost sounds condescending, but just by saying it's going to be perfect, we're going to decorate, have some cocoa, and tell children's stories. I mean, this sounds very condescending, like, Allison, get a life. We're going to do this stuff and stop getting involved in our life. Now, Grace, here we go. Top of 178. The last two calls made from Kamel's phone were also on December 15th, 2014. Both calls were made to a 1-800 number. 1-800-869-3557. The first one was 6:34 p.m. and lasted 1 minute and 29 seconds. The second call was made at 6:38 and lasted 25 minutes and 51 seconds. Interesting. On December 16th, Danny Mason did reply to David's email. This was the deadline now, the 16th. But he didn't respond how David had hoped. Danny writes, quote, buddy, Please give me a call about moving forward before I sign the release form, end quote. This is, oh, this is just too much. He says, I'm not going to sign it, but if you give me a call, then I can sign it. He knows now he's got to say something to entice David to give him a call back by saying, look, I'll sign it. We just need to chat first. He waits to the deadline. I repeat, waits to the deadline and shoots an email saying, hey, buddy, give me a call. David already was done with all these warnings and warnings and warnings. He gave him the deadline and simply said, sign it or not, I'm moving forward on the 16th. Now he says, hey, give me a call. This is not someone David should have been associating with. This is not a true friend when you're behaving like this. Phone records show Danny Mason also called David on December 16th at 6:45 p.m., but David did not answer. Danny Mason then sent David a text message the following day at 11:52 a.m. Now, David changed his number. Now, Danny obviously had it or got it somehow because he went out of his way to call him. David's like, I'm not picking up your calls. I'm not answering your texts. You're an idiot. So he waits till the end, the evening, 6:45. He's got to be sweating bullets. The next morning, he sends a text at 11:52 a.m. around noon. Now, during a December 17th, 2014 email exchange with Jason Allen, David Crowley relayed his plans for releasing the documentary film in a few weeks. Jason Allen is a, quote, first assistant director at the Directors Guild of America. And we're going to keep that in mind, too. You know, David was dealing with legitimate folks, legitimate people there in Hollywood. Here's the situation, David wrote to Jason Allen. In a few weeks, you'll be able to watch a 2.5-hour documentary, a manifesto on the Gray State model called The Rise, completely in tandem with a few new trailers for a Gray State series that has an integrated storyline with multiple feature films. Gray State fans are growing at a rate of 100 to 200 per day now. Even now, when I got started, I can only expect they'll keep coming. My wife Kamel and I are quietly and fervently putting all this into place, and no one else, and I mean no one else, all capital letters, is at all involved in the project's decision-making process or finances. Kamel is helping me finally database the network for professionals, actors, and concerned citizens. Basically, the wealth of the interest Gray State has drawn over the years in the form of pledges of service, a real industry contacts with which you probably already are intimately connected, end quote. So, Greg, lot here. He's dealing with a legitimate Hollywood producer. He says you're going to watch a 2.5-hour documentary. We know that's true. That came out. That's the documentary. That is real. A few new trailers. I don't know if that's true or not. It could have been. Multiple storylines with multiple feature films. I don't know about that, but this is what he said. He goes out of his way to say, me and Kamel are doing everything. Producing, financing, business decisions, process making. Everything is just us.
I really like that. I like how he says quietly and fervently. I mean, this is the key thing. When the police read this and they're thinking, oh, they went silent or they were going crazy during this time. No, they're planning. They're in some very serious planning. This is their life. This is a big deal. They have a big opportunity here to do something very special. And sometimes you only get like one shot at something like this. And you cannot have, like you said, stragglers. You cannot have these things that are looming that are going to come up later if the project does well, and then all of a sudden you have contracts, or now they have to cease, going forward with it because other guys from the Gray State team, the Gray State Goons, now all of a sudden want a part of it. They get their lawyers involved and it can become a mess. All stuff that I would hate to deal with and have no interest and no knowledge about, but it all sounds like a complete nightmare. Learning about this case, especially this part here, really helped me to understand some of the back end stuff that probably happens all the time. And if you're not involved in that, you may just be like me and say, oh, what's the big deal? It's two guys fighting, not that big of a deal. This is very, very serious here. What is happening between David and trying to distance himself from these people. Here's the reason for it too.
Yeah, I do like the uppercase. Believe me, it's just us. We're doing this solo. So David essentially was saying, look, I'm laser focused on getting this done. And this gets back to the turning down the phone calls, not answering the phone, not answering the texts, the emails. He's focused on getting this stuff done, not doing things with the family. He's focused. And this is what we know about David Crowley. He's a laser focused guy. Comelle was very intimately involved as well with this whole project. And since he stripped everyone else out of it, she entered the fray and filled in as that coming up with the business, the process, the financials, the how all this is going to work, and became really his right-hand man in this project. Now, we also know that she was somewhat laser focused herself in the project, but at the same time, she was also inquiry with properties in Los Angeles as far as buying houses and homes and looking into places that they could possibly move to. So they were so focused. This project was their life. This contract takes off. She was looking at rental real estate listings to move. They were in talks with, television series, network series, movies, multiple movies, a documentary. They were focused on all this, and they put all the family in the back, and the old guys in the goons in the gray state, these other guys as secondary. They knew that to make this work, they had to stay focused, and I like that. They were doing this.
Yeah, me too.
Very good. Now, you go on to say, Greg, in the book on the top of 179, it says that this too shows David was planning for his future as late as December 17th, 2014. David seemed very enthusiastic about the growing interest in the Gray State project. Hundreds of offers, quote, David wrote, dozens of sponsors, an email list of 1,200, and over 50,000 in social media contact, which is growing by the day. It is a time bomb of public interest. Huge by saying this. The narrative is that you said he was isolating himself and becoming suicidal, not eating, and was bankrupt. Look at this. He's got sponsors, offers, email lists, social media contacts. This was blowing up. And the previous page, he says, we're getting 100 to 200 new fans a day. He couldn't keep up with the growing interest. So this dispels any of this thought of him being a suicidal maniac because his dreams have gone up in flames. He said, quote, continuing, it is a time bomb of public interest, standing offers you wouldn't believe, apps, video games, the works. I can't even begin to explain over email. I can't even keep it all in my head, especially with what's going on in the news and how keyed up people are for some kind of hope. Once again, I really enjoy David's writing, his verbiage. Very gifted writer.
Yeah,
good stuff. I just like the way he portrays what's going on. Very intelligent man.
Yeah, and when you read this, remember this is December 17th, right? December 17th, December 16th, right there. Does this sound like a person going crazy to you? Does it sound
happy,
like a person losing
excited,
it?
Yeah. And your word you used in the book is enthusiastic. I love that. Him and Comelle were very enthusiastic about all this stuff that was going on. And this was just the 17th of December. This is a week before Christmas Day. And they said, he was, holed himself up in his house, suicidal, not eating. He looked scant, not answering phone calls. That was all a narrative that they needed to push to make everything line up. And this paragraph right here and the two or three paragraphs preceding this puts holes all through this narrative that none of it was true. Continuing on, David was expecting a lot of money to come together in the next few weeks, adding, quote, it might be enough to get started on a series, then independent features running a common storyline, all run by an interstate network of committed individual professionals who can organize all these assets and operate outside of the traditional money-making sphere of media distribution. So once again, he emphasizes that this is not about making money and becoming rich. He's saying money will come in, but we're going to do this in a different way, a non-traditional way to get this information out there.
Right.
Quote, when you see the rise, David continued, and the new trailers for the Gray State series, you'll know what I mean when I say I have followed my heart at every step. David asked Jason Allen to be an executive producer for Gray State. Allen responded to David's email on January 8th, 2015 at 10:54 a.m. Right, quote, actually, in Bismarck, flying to Minneapolis in 30 minutes, and we'll have a 2-hour layover. Would love to call you while I'm waiting for my flight to Los Angeles so we can discuss all your recent developments and how to best approach the Gray State project in 2015. Let me know if you'd be available for a phone call conversation around 3:33 p.m. Central Time. Wow. So Greg, all of this information is positive and puts holes in the official narrative.
Yeah, more planning for the future.
He wants Jason Allen to become the executive producer for Gray State. Good. Great. That he wants him to do that. That's great. But notice how Allen responds on January 8th.
Mm-hmm.
January 8th. The bodies by this time are all dead. The 3 dead bodies in that house are there when this email comes back responding to it, correct?
That's right.
He says, let's focus on 2015. In other words, looking forward to the future. I have a 2-hour layover. Would love to call you. And this shows that Jason Allen now is encouraged, excited, enthusiastic. All the words reciprocating David's enthusiastic and excited. These guys were reciprocating this. They were on the same page. This was not a, yeah, we'd like to go in business with you, but it sounds to me like it's going to be a dud. But yeah, let's certainly go ahead and do it. These guys were excited. So he says, give me a call. That's going to be great. Top of page 180, Jason Allen found it hard to believe that David Crowley would murder his wife and child before taking his own life. Quote, David had this consistency and this very steady way about him. In many ways, it felt very contradictory to the actions of a murder-suicide. I truly saw an optimism to it, end quote. I agree with this 100%. I mean, Jason Allen found out that there was a murder-homicide, and he couldn't get his head around it, right?
Right.
And the word he used was optimist, very optimistic. So on Saturday, December 20th, 2014, 12:16 p.m., Heidi, Comel's friend, asked Comel in a text message, do you have a favorite program, plugin, or site that you use to generate client recipes and menu plans? How do you do it? I'm pulling my hair out looking online, end quote. So this is December 20th. Still asking Comel for advice on her business. Nothing fancy, Comel responds on December 21st, 2014. I use Excel and created my own formulas to keep track of macro and micronutrients to ensure they are getting the variety that I want for them. I don't ever give out generic meal plans or recipes, though. Everything is catered specifically to each client depending on their disease or condition, end quote.
Now, this also sounds like Comel is still doing her business. Her business is still up and running. She's not saying what she used to do. She's saying what she does now with current clients is what it sounds like to me. Again, we were told the business was dead. They had no money. They weren't making money. It sounds like they had a lot of things going on, a lot of positive things.
And the fact that people are still asking them for advice, business advice, people are asking them, come to Comel. They're coming to Comel. I can't find anything online. I'm pulling my hair out. What do you do? What do you do? Point me in the right direction. These are very high IQ people that their standards were very, very high. And she said herself, Comel, that I don't use anything generic, or I don't take the easy path on any of these plans. I cater to a specific plan for the dietary needs. So very, very good. Once again, all very positive. Heidi advised me, Detective Gummert wrote in his report, that she did not mention much about David, but she did state that all his movie all his movie work was for an upcoming Spider-Man movie that he was making.
That's weird. That's weird, because we've talked about the Spider-Man thing and what could that have been? What movie could that have possibly been? And this may have just been more of people not telling David and Kamel kind of not telling the truth. But this sounds like, why would you even say this if it's true? If Kamel really did say this, but why would you? And this is not the first time. The Spider-Man thing is mentioned a couple times in the police reports, which is weird too. I always found that weird and could never really wrap my head around where that came from, why she would tell somebody that. Because you may say, hey, he's working on a movie, but why would you specifically say a Spider-Man movie? I just always found that kind of strange.
Do you think, Greg, so what was going on back in those years? So 2014, this Spider-Man new movie came out, and the new generation of the subsequent films came out. So that was popular in this time frame, the new Spider-Man. And they may have said, look, that's something that people will contemplate. People, if we just tell them we're working on a new Spider-Man movie, get out of our hair, go on. Or we don't want to tell you the truth, so we'll say that. Or they were saying something legit to them, and this Heidi, who didn't know it and was up over her head of what they're talking about, in her head thought it looks like he's doing some sci-fi thing. He's working on another Spider-Man movie, when he was working on real life stuff, so she may have interpreted him as a conspiracy theorist that, whatever, it's another sci-fi thing. That's never the case with conspiracy theories and things like that. You never consider them sci-fi, but the general public always does. They always think it's some kind of wild dystopian thing. So Heidi may have just been out of the loop, didn't understand, may have just been better friends with Kamel, didn't understand or know David that much. Maybe she was being truthful. But we do get this stuff from Detective Gummert where things are always just sketchy. They're either not telling him the right stuff, or he's not interpreting it right, or he doesn't know what right questions to ask. Continuing on December 23rd, now 2 days before Christmas, 2014, Sidra, this is the sister now, stated that she had 2 missed calls from an unknown number. The first call was at her work. Detective Jim Gummert reported, quote, on the morning of 12/23/2014 at 9:36 a.m., with the second call at 11:40 a.m., Sidra stated she had no viable proof that they were calls that were coming from her sister, but that she believes that they were. So these were not like we see on our phones now, spam or potential spam caller. These were numbers that were legit. There was just no contact associated with them. They were just phone numbers coming in as if they were coming in from an unknown number. Now, David and Kamel changed their phone numbers. So once they got the new number, Sidra is thinking that Kamel called her to let her know of the new number, and she didn't pick up because she didn't know who it was or whatever. But this was her sister who lives in Texas, Sidra. She thinks that she just assumes that I don't know who else they'd be coming in from, an unknown number.
Yeah, and since they didn't, they're not in the phone records. I mean, you can say, okay, either this was just somebody else that Sidra didn't know, or did David and Kamel have this other phone? Did they have some other type of phone? Which there's no evidence of that I've been able to see, no proof of that, a burner phone or anything like that. But for some of the stuff in the phone records, or for some of the stuff to line up with what the police say and what the phone records show, the only thing that would make sense, if there's any truth to it, would have to be some type of a burner phone, some type of a other phone that we just don't know of, or something like that. But again, there's I haven't been able to find any. I haven't seen any evidence of that. That's why I never really go there in this book. There's thoughts and there's things that we can guess from a lot of this stuff.
Speculate.
But I really wanted to focus on what these people are all saying, to pull all of the documents, everything into one nice little book. That was the goal.
So she receives 2 missed calls from an unknown number. I'm assuming here that's the same number that's unknown, called her twice. 9:36 a.m. and 11:40 a.m. So fair enough. It could have been Kamel. She doesn't have proof. There is no way to prove it, but she says it's probably from them. Now, Sidra was engaged at the time and dating and engaged to Vinny, and they were focusing on their own things. So they were working and busy. that it sounds to me like Sidra probably didn't get a lot of phone calls coming in from unknown numbers. It's typically family, friends, coworkers, or people that she already had in her contact list. So she did think it was odd that a person would call twice. Not leave a message, mind you, I'm assuming. Yeah, no message was left, but just 2 missed calls from the same number. She may have been right. We don't know. David did not receive any phone calls on Christmas Eve 2014, but someone did text him at 8:23 that evening. 8:23 p.m., someone texted him. In the first hour of December 25th, 2014, so this is Christmas Day after midnight now, between midnight and 1 a.m., Gray Stage, The Rise, posted a link to the Patriots Guild Facebook page with the following comment: an excellent group/page run by some real patriots that are close friends of ours. Make sure to give them a like. You have a lot of great things on the horizon. That was, Greg says in his book on the top of page 181, that was possibly David's last post before he died. If in fact it was David Crowley posting as Gray State, The Rise on their Facebook group page at that time. In the comments section, someone asked when Gray State movie would be released. Gray State, The Rise responded with, make sure to follow this page, Gray State, for updates on filming. In a separate comment, Gray State, The Rise wrote, and it's not an easy feat when trying to maintain the story's integrity without selling out and having such a small team, unquote. Now you write, Greg, who was part of the small team at the time and who was not. So if this was David Crowley, which I think it was, he was logged in as the owner or the manager or the admin of this Facebook group page, Gray State, The Rise. It's tough to do. We have a lot of work to do, and there's such a small team of people doing this. And this is the public comment. So once again, it's another dig, perhaps, that, hey, we're doing the solo and you guys have been left behind.
Yeah, I think that's the best evidence that it actually was David Crowley. The way that he says it, the way that he kind of lays that out there. But yeah, here we are again, more planning for the future, and the project still seems like it is going on.
The other thing that just wanted to clarify here, Greg, for the listeners is, the person who commented did say, they asked once again, when's the Gray State movie going to be released? So the assumption, once again, because the trailer was out there, is that the movie was made and they were just waiting on this deadline, waiting on the release date. When's the movie going to hit the theaters is what the common everyday person thought who was following this. When is that movie going to hit the theaters? The Gray State team made the trailer, but never did the movie. And then they pitched the trailer to get funds to make a movie. But the regular Joe Blow on the street thought that the movie was done. They made a trailer out of it, and they were waiting and waiting and waiting for this movie to be released. And so David had to once again clarify to say that we'll be releasing The Rise, which is the documentary, soon, and follow this page for updates on that. And he goes on to say that we're going to be giving updates on the filming. Once again, alluding to the fact that the filming has not yet been done. We haven't started filming the movie. So there was confusion from day one on all of these kinds of things as well. But he does go on to say that we're not selling out and we have a small team. Very important. Now, continuing on, page 181 in the middle, according to Pat Pfeiffer of the Star Tribune, on December 26th or 27th, 2014, Dan Crowley Jr. went to his brother's house to drop off Christmas presents along with some mail for David. However, police reports clearly state that Dan Jr. went to his brother's house on December 28th. So the Star Tribune is a local newspaper in the Twin Cities, the Minneapolis Star Tribune, and they had reporters out on this case and following this case. And they said that the brother went, it was either 26th or 27th to drop off presents for Christmas. Didn't get in, didn't ring the doorbell, didn't knock, but left them on the front steps. The infamous photos we see of the gifts on the front steps, along with some mail. Once again, the family did get together down in Owatonna, where Dan Sr. lives, and the mother, Kate, lives in a separate house in Owatonna. They all did Christmas there. David was not, because they said we want to celebrate Christmas with the three of us here at our own house for Christmas Eve. So I'm assuming then they went and had Christmas. Dan Crowley Jr. is, of the family members, lives the closest to David. Probably says, look, I'll put it all in a bag. I'll take the gifts that were meant for him. He said some mail came here as well. The dad says, drop it all off at David's house on the way back to your house. And so he did that. He said it was the 26th or 27th. Makes sense. Now, the police reports say Dan Jr. went to his brother's house on December 28th. Not a big deal, but you would know when you last went to the brother's house, if a triple homicide took place, and what day indeed you dropped those gifts off. Greg, what's the likelihood of getting the dates mixed up?
I don't believe it's very difficult to. I mean, I guess it's possible, giving him the benefit of the doubt. Kind of like you said, it's not that big of a deal, but it is interesting that he tells the newspaper one thing, but obviously when he's talking to the cops, he's telling them something different. It is one day off, it's 2 days off, but yes, you would definitely know what day you went there. There's no reason to have these differing dates, and it just adds to so much of the inconsistencies in the family story, in a lot of things that we have seen. It really adds to that. So I felt it was very important to put that in there, because when I first heard it, I was like, why would you say the 26th or the 27th and then clearly tell the police, which all has to be around the same time? He may have even spoken to the cops first. We don't know. I forget what date that was, but yeah. So I really had a big issue with that, and I can't make any sense of it other than what you say. It's just not that big of a deal. Sometimes you get dates wrong, but that's a big one to get wrong. I think that's a very important thing, because you may have been the last person at your brother's house, possibly, most likely.
And I think that's a huge thing. I'm very glad you included it in your book, Greg. This is a major point, a major thing. Once again, if you get found out that a family member of yours was a triple homicide, horrific crime scene took place, and you were just recently there, first thing you do is go to your calendar and say, well, I was just there on the 26th or the 27th. I was literally recently there. I looked up the date. I did this on this date. So when the Star Tribune asks, Danny's Jr.'s response was the 26th or the 27th. Right off the bat, if I was to put on my psychological therapist hat on, I would say the fact that he used "or" is giving him some leeway. You know, he doesn't want to be the last person to see them alive, because now he's going to become a suspect. So he says 26th or 27th. Very aloof, we think of, but I think it was very planned that he said "or." He doesn't want to say it, lock in a date. He doesn't know who's been there since. He doesn't want to back himself into a corner. He's watching everything he says now, because as you and I think, he was involved in some level of this. He's got to watch what he says. To the cops now, a little more important, he knows he can't say "or." Detectives are going to raise their antenna and say, what do you mean "or"? What date was it? He knows enough. He's smart enough to say, I was there the 28th.
Yeah, the fact that he's even talking to the news, the local media, is strange too, because I thought they were taking time to grieve, and that's why they weren't talking to anybody. They weren't telling anybody anything. So in one instance, they're telling everybody on Facebook, don't bother us because we're grieving. We're still grieving. And then you have Sean Wright blowing up my phone, calling other people. I found out he called you too. He called a lot of other people too, while they're supposed to be grieving. They're not grieving. They're trying to get their story straight, or trying to get everybody else to fall in line with whatever their plan is.
So a psychologist typically says this: if you're telling the truth, you're not going to get things wrong.
Right.
If you're telling lies, you have to go back into your brain and remember what lie you told who to make sure it's all lined up. This leads me to believe that Dan Crowley Jr. was lying with the three different dates. He says the 26th or the 27th. I don't know. Oh, he's just aloof. He just forgot. He's dealing with a big crime. He probably just forgot. No, you don't forget. You tell the cops a different date. This to me leads me to believe that he's trying in his head to get the dates right, and he's struggling with what his story is or was. He's struggling. He's getting dates wrong. If you're telling the truth, this behavior does not happen. You don't get the dates wrong. He's not telling the truth. So the question is, in my mind, if I was a detective, why is Dan Jr. lying? We know he's not telling the truth. He wouldn't get all these dates wrong. Why is he lying? What's he got to hide? Now, instead of even getting the date wrong, he goes further away from the date of the Christmas. Once again, in my mind, trying to distance himself from being at the scene of a triple homicide. So I'm very glad you put that in the book. That's huge from a detective. Should be a detective, a true detective, if they weren't compromised, would go back and say, you got your stories wrong. Things aren't adding up. Why can't you keep your stories straight? That's something a liar does.
I think it also came out later, and Mason Hendricks told me this too, and I believe it's in the Netflix film that Danny, David's brother, actually came over before this date too, maybe even Christmas Eve, maybe a day before Christmas, and was going to stop by, but then had a change of heart and didn't actually stop by his brother's house. So
that's true. That is true.
With two different sources.
He said he was on his way and then turned around because he forgot or didn't want to do it or something.
But that's not mentioned in any police reports either. That's a big deal there.
So what you get is the backlash, the aftermath of this crime is not only is the crime committed, the aftermath. Now you can see the guys scurrying around trying to get their story straight, making phone calls, emailing, texts to you and I, literally calling you and I, while saying on Facebook that they're busy grieving their best friend's death. They weren't grieving; they were off doing interviews,
right,
on TV and radio and newspaper. And making phone calls to us. If my brother's family was the victim of a triple homicide, I wouldn't be reaching out to random people on the internet to make sure my story was straight. These guys knew right from the get-go that we were on to something. And this is what you see with the aftermath.
And that's why
you tell me a triple homicide, you'd be trying to find phone numbers and emails and contacts of someone on the internet that's looking into this case. I'd say, I don't have time for you people.
Right.
See ya. Bye.
But they really wanted to take control of your group of the Justice for David Crowley and Family Facebook group, and they really wanted and did kind of mess up the Justice for David Crowley or the Justice for David Crowley of Gray State Facebook page. They wanted both of those while they're supposed to be grieving.
They wanted to control and take over both of those Facebook groups. So I was running one, another person was running another. You, Greg, weren't running either one, but you were involved in the one. And Sean Wright and Mason Hendricks were making phone calls to you to say, stop asking questions. That should be right there. The lead detective in the case his antennas should be raised by saying, why are you kidding me? What are you talking about? Really? You're making phone calls and contacting people you don't know on the internet. You were living in California at the time. I was 30 miles away in Minnesota. They didn't know us from Adam, but they could not wait to get our phone numbers and contact us to say, we want to be administrators for that Facebook page while they were grieving.
Oh, boy.
Mason Hendricks, continuing on, a friend of David Crowley, said Dan Jr. saw Paleo, the family dog, pop his head up through the large front window. Dan dropped off the Christmas presents by the front door and tried contacting his brother several times afterwards, but David never responded to his phone calls or text messages. Greg, is this true? Do we have evidence that he tried reaching out or calling, or was all this fake as well?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. I have to go back to the phone records and really see if that's true or not. I don't remember if that's true or not.
Okay. So he did say that he was there, goes out of his way to state that the dog popped his head up in the window. Fair enough. That could have happened. but did say that he dropped the presents off. He never said, which I think is very interesting. He never said that, I rang the doorbell and there was no response. I knocked on the door and there was no response. He just said, I went there and left the gifts. That's very telling. I saw the dog pop up and I left. They're not on good terms by just that simple fact happening. David's father and brother also tried to contact David and Kamel, but were unsuccessful. According to Pat Pfeiffer's Star Tribune article, Dan Crowley Sr., now the dad, quote, hadn't heard from his son and daughter-in-law over the holidays, end quote. We tried, the dad says to Pfeiffer.
Yeah, just to go back for a second to David's brother, like you said, that's another big deal there. Why would you go all of this way, bring all of these presents, and just leave them at the front door? No, you're gonna knock. You're gonna do something, obviously. I mean, if you want, it's a great way to kind of go back and try to. It's a good reason to reconnect with your brother. But you're not just going to leave them at the front door. He had to have knocked. He had to have rang the doorbell. Maybe they didn't pick up or something like that. But it's weird. It's another strange aspect to this case. That strange things that the brother does.
Yeah, and living here in Minnesota, I would say the common behavior for Minnesotans is not to drop it off and leave.
Especially in the winter.
Especially family. Now, so we know there's problems. We know they did not reconcile yet. So this just leads to the fact and eludes, once again, it confirms the fact that these two were not getting along. He kind of went in, kind of slinked in, dropped it, and left. He did not want to be seen at all because that would have had a possible confrontation. So that's very telling that he did this. Now, the other thing, as far as Dan Sr., the dad, did go out of his way to say that we tried contacting and reaching out to them, but they never responded. So I think it was Catherine at the time, when she got those phone records, showed on David's phone, there were no texts or no missed calls from Dan Sr. at all. Is that correct? Is that confirmed that there were those phone calls never lined up? There was no reaching out. There was no phone calls in the phone log to confirm Dan even reached out to his own son over the holidays. Now, he said we hadn't heard from them over the holidays. That part was true. They offered, come on down and invite. They said, no, thanks. We'll stay home. They didn't hear from them over the holidays. That's a fact.
Yeah.
But Dan, being the concerned father here to police, Star Tribune, to the Star Tribune reporter, he says, we tried reaching out.
Right.
That, I think, is a lie. There was nothing to confirm any call came from Dan Sr. when we got the phone records from David Crowley's phone. There was no incoming call at all from the dad. Now, which means now he's lying to the Star Tribune article writer, trying to push that he's this great father, of course, right?
Yeah, and when he says we haven't heard from them over, that's not true either. He did hear from them because David told them that they're going to stay home or whatever, right? So they did hear from them at some point. I don't know. It's all very, very strange.
Yeah, he heard from them. I think Dan or Allison, forwarded on the message to the dad that they won't be here because they want to spend the time alone.
Got it.
And he took it as, we hadn't heard from them for a while, which is half true and half not. But it's the crafting of the language that's being used is what I don't like here. We tried to reach out. They didn't call back. I tried to reach out again. They didn't respond. Well, the phone records show that you did not reach out. And so this is very interesting. One day, it would be great to have Dan Crowley Sr. on this interview.
Yes.
Just to straight up ask him some of these questions, not to put him on the stand, not to make him feel defensive, but, there are very strange things that don't tie back to facts. We like to live in facts here on this show and to speak in facts. Very interesting.
Yeah, and I don't know that much about Pat Pfeiffer, but the way that Pat phrases the whole article about it is very strange too, and it's very just falling in line with David Crowley's guilty. Everybody tried to reach him. He wasn't talking to anybody. He went into this deep, dark place and just did all of these crazy things. So I don't know if Pat is a girl or a guy, whoever Pat is, but that article, the way that the article is written, almost seems part of the staged process too. It seems like it's a part of this gray staging.
Yeah, and Greg, you make a good point that we know in the aftermath, when this was all done and the documentary was made and the articles came out from People magazine and the New Yorker and all these things, we know at that point that was propaganda. That was slam dunk, someone on the inside writing it to really shame us and make us look bad and to make the official narrative look right. That's propaganda. That's the definition of propaganda. They had a narrative that they were trying to push. The movie, the Gray State movie, propaganda. But early on, when we have people writing here from the Star Tribune and people doing actual interviews and actually authentic interviews, in our mind, it already seems goofy because they're not asking normal questions. The narrative already seems to be in line. So one could suspect, as we both do, that the propaganda could have started from the very beginning with someone in that Star Tribune newsroom making sure that the story lined up, or making sure that Pat Pfeiffer, he or she, got it lined up and tweaked it that way. I did an interview with the City Pages, and that seemed to be coming from a guy that was honest to goodness, wanting to know what really happened here. By that time that article came out too, it was more or less of the narrative. And I was a wild conspiracy theorist coming up with some wild thoughts. And once again, just to reiterate, the things that we say here on this show and the things that we put out, like you have in this book, are just facts. You may not agree with them, but it is.
Yeah, we keep our opinions at least to a very
we can
minimal.
think, yeah, we could think them, but we don't offer them too often. A couple times I offer them and clearly stated that this is my opinion. And got some backlash, but I clearly said that just to make sure that we're all on the same page. The bottom of 181, it says, on New Year's Day 2015, Kate Crowley called David at 2:55 a.m. Once again, very bizarre. And then at 2:54 a.m. on January 3rd, like the previous attempts by Kate, his mother, both calls went to David's voicemail. Kate also called Kamel's old phone number at 2:59 a.m. So Kate allegedly, we can just say allegedly, had a drinking problem. That would certainly explain phone calls at 2:55, 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. Not that that's right or wrong. That could have been what she was doing. It could have been how she normally made her phone calls. I do find that odd, but at least she left a voicemail. They rolled to voicemail. She didn't hang up. Sidra had a missed call, and that's all it was, a missed call. These do go out of the way to say that she let them roll over into voicemail. So very different. She's also worried, one could argue, that she wonders if these guys are alive. And as a mother, maybe she had a premonition, something didn't feel right, and she got nervous and made some phone calls. We don't know. But this was New Year's Day. Now we're on the top of page 182. How much further do you want to go, Greg?
Maybe right before, maybe just the next sentence.
Okay, so the next sentence says, Michelle Wallach tried calling Komel on January 8th, 13th, 14th, and 15th of 2015. On January 17th, one call was made to David Crowley's cell phone call at 3:17 a.m. So very important. So Michelle Wallach, is she the director at the school?
I believe you're right. I believe that is correct. Yeah.
So Apple Valley is where the family was from. They enrolled Rania in a, was it a gifted preschool or just a regular preschool or a Montessori? Montessori. And so Michelle was the director, or not only the teacher, but I think she was running the show there. Tried to call Komel. Remember, Christmas holidays were over. The kids are now back to school. Rania doesn't show. So as a teacher would call and either leave a message or not, but call. And as a teacher, she documents. So she clearly tells the police, I called on the 8th, 13th, 14th, and 15th. Totally lines up with a professional educator, a teacher. I'm going to log the times I reached out. The kid didn't show up for school the entire week when they went back. So, of course, she tried calling. No one phone call was made to David Crowley's cell phone at 3:17 a.m. on the 17th. Was this from Michelle Wallach, do you mean?
I think that phone call, the ladies traced that phone call back to Zach Carter, who was a liaison between the Mikes and David Crowley. So a guy named Zach Carter was in
Okay.
kind of the
So not
the
from
go-to.
Michelle. That would not be
Not for Michelle. Not for
appropriate to have a teacher at 3 a.m. making a phone call. to
Michelle.
Michelle.
That would be a little weird.
So Michelle is on par with everything she does here makes sense. She's reaching out, she's calling, and she's logging the date she calls. 3:17 a.m. On the 17th. This is when the bodies were discovered. Was the 17th?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Okay. So police are on the scene. The medical examiner is on the scene on the 17th. And somehow someone in the inner circle makes a phone call to David Crowley at 3:17 a.m. That's very interesting. How this person would even know.
Well, this
much
this
less-
would be before the bodies were found, like hours before the bodies were.
Oh,
were
because they were not on the scene yet.
correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah, they'll be on the scene later. But yes, so somebody
Later that day. So
yeah, just
no
the one
one
call
knows. No one knows what's going on. And this phone call comes in at 3:17. That's a good stopping point
It's an interesting time
for
though
today
too.
because once again, all these 3:17 a.m. phone calls. The mother's odd, but she has allegedly a drinking problem. I could buy that. This friend calls. This now seems more like an emergency. This sounds more like something ain't right, a premonition, an emergency, or he knows something and he's just calling to see indeed if it rolls over to voicemail or if someone picks up. So it's very interesting.
That's right.
But I like that the Montessori did everything right. The school's out for the holidays. They come back after the first. School is engaged. They're going. She seems to miss an entire week of school. The teacher's leaving multiple messages, voicemails, whatever, but at least contacting. I had said in the past that it's typical, probably even in a small town or smaller Minnesota like this, when you're close to the parents, that you would make it at some point. You'd make a visit to the house and say, "I'm just going to do a wellness check. What's going on with your daughter?" And I don't know if that happened or if that was recorded or not, but so far we just know that phone calls were made to reach out, and she had them logged. Love it. That's she is doing the right things there as a teacher.
Right. Yeah, she definitely tried. She definitely tried. And like you said, I think that's a great place to end this here because we'll come back next month and we're now on the day of that the bodies are found. And we go there. It's not too much more. Not too
The
much
next
more.
steps should go fast, but very interesting. Just please take note of once again the inconsistencies, the things that are off, the things that don't make sense, the things that when you read it and it seems off in your head, it's probably legit that something is off. Or if you're a detective and you're reading this, things would be jumping out at you, and that's what we're trying to push on this case. That no one really seems to put two and two together and say, "Well, this is really goofy stuff." Your book puts everything together for the reader. When they read it, it's jumping out in front of the paper. It's jumping off the page that something screams that does not make sense.
Mm-hmm. That's right. It's definitely doesn't. That's about it. Any final words, Dan?
Nope. Very interesting. Please get out there and read it. It's available online for free in PDF format, or you can purchase the book there as well. I believe that's still out there. That you can purchase the book online, right, Greg?
That's right. It's still
Okay.
on lulu.com. You can always get it there, but if you just search for it, you'll definitely find it. But yeah, if you just want to read the PDF is free. Go to thegraystage.wordpress.com. It's all right there for you.
Awesome. All right. Thanks again, Greg. We'll talk to you next time.
All right, brother. Always good to chat with you, man.
All right.
Until next
See ya.
time. See you.